Too. But right now, the big battle in the state of Utah, you can see this coming. There is going to be a lawsuit involving the state and the high-tech industry. The governor has signed into law a new social media bill. And what this does is it gives parents authority to know what their children are seeing on social media. And it's really shaping up to be a battle. He emphasized he is willing to fight yesterday. And joining us now on our Newsmaker line is Carl Szabo. Carl is with NetChoice. He's vice president and general counsel there to give their side of the story on this debate. Carl, thanks for joining us on the show tonight. Explain to people, first of all, Carl, what NetChoice is all about.
So NetChoice has been around for over 20 years, and I wake up every single day with one mission in mind, and that's to promote free expression and free enterprise on the Internet. Pretty much that simple. So we are a tech trade association with that guiding principle. And whether it's in the states, whether it's in Congress, or whether it's internationally, we are fighting every single day to promote free expression and free enterprise on the Internet.
All right. It looks like a battle is shaping up between the tech industry and Utah over this attempt by the state to restrict minors from using social media. What's your initial reaction to this, Carl?
Look, this legislation comes from a good place. I know many of the sponsors personally. I've known them for many years. And look, when it comes to protecting our children on the Internet, that's something that we should all focus on. But by the same token, as a parent, as the spouse of a child therapist, I believe that I am in the best position to decide what is best for my children and my family. And what this legislation attempts to do, well-intentioned as it is to take that responsibility and hand it over to the government and hand it over to the tech industry and let them decide what is best for my family and my children. And I'm sorry, they may think they know what's best for my family, but they don't know my children. I know my children. So let me be the one to make the decision. Don't take that power away from me.
Well, you're going to hear the argument, though, Carl, from parents who I think many of them, probably I would include myself in that group, who don't know what to do. How can you control your child's access to social media? The devices, I know there are steps you can take to protect your child, but many parents don't know how to do that, so they're now turning to government to say, hey, we need some help. Agree or disagree on that?
It is hard. Absolutely. And I don't consider myself to be an expert in it either, even though I do it. And pretty much every single parent is kind of figuring it out. And guess what? The government doesn't have the answers either. They don't necessarily know what the solution is, because if they did, they'd tell us. They maybe give us an idea, but they don't. Being a parent is really hard. We are going to stumble, and we are going to figure our way through this the way that we always have. My parents did it with cable television. Their parents did it with broadcast. Their parents did it with radio and the telephone and everything else. New technology always presents new challenges for parents. But the solution is not for the government to come in and take control. The better approach, the approach that's being tried in states like Florida, in states like Virginia, in states like Indiana, is to begin starting to teach our teenagers how to use this technology appropriately, empower them. Much in the same way that we used to teach reading, writing, and arithmetic, and we used to teach shop and home ec, we need to start teaching social media literacy in our schools. And that's what Florida, Virginia, and Indiana are looking to do before having the government come and step in and seize control.
Carl, do you agree that there are mental health components involved in all of this and the impact of social media on the mental health of children? Now, what do we do about that?
Yeah, absolutely. That is an incredibly tough question. And once again, my wife's a child therapist. She's at the front lines of this.
Yeah.
But when it comes to social media, it's not a good or bad. That's the problem. We can't couch it that way, because a number of teenagers use social media the same way that you and I probably used landline phones to talk to our friends. Simultaneously, there was testimony in Utah from a 16-year-old who said, yeah, we are depressed. But you know what? We use social media to talk about those problems, to talk with our friends, to talk with our loved ones. So social media is not a good or a bad. There are bad things on social media. And there are good things on social media. Social media can help my kid learn to be a better soccer player, but in the same way, it can have negative impact. But the answer isn't to ban it. That's like going out there and trying to remove books from libraries and stuff like that. And we would say that's probably absurd too. What we should instead do is empower parents with better tips and better tools. And one of the things that isn't known is most every social media platform has incredible parental controls. What is not necessarily known is each device has incredible parental controls. But most people don't know about that or know how to use it. Rather than the government coming in and taking control of our devices, let's help people better understand how to use the devices they have and make them work for them.
I was going to ask you, Carl, in a follow-up to that question, could the tech industry do a better job in educating parents about the controls and parental controls that they have on their devices? Because a lot of parents, as you well know, Carl, are out there shaking their heads saying, I don't know what to do. I just don't want my kids seeing this stuff. I mean, could the tech industry do a better job at educating parents?
Oh, 100%. 100%. It is the role of the tech industry to better educate. Simultaneously, we have literally billions of dollars designed to help educate people on better ways to be healthy, better ways to exercise, and we need to start investing some of that money in better ways to stay safe online and teach our kids not just good cyber hygiene when it comes to social media, but data security and privacy practices that is completely left out of most conversations as well. And of course, one of the great ironies of this legislation, as well-intended as it is it actually requires massive amounts of data collection of every single Utahn and simultaneously keeping a record of what websites we visit and what websites we look at. And that's a real honeypot of really dangerous information that if it got into the wrong hands could really cause a lot of problems.
Carl, final question for you. There's no doubt this is going to end up in the courts, a battle, I would think. What is this case going to hinge on? Is it going to come down to an issue of privacy?
You know, I think ultimately it would come down to an issue of the First Amendment. And this is, so the First Amendment protects us from government-compelled speech. So the government can't force us to say something we don't want to say. But by the same token, the First Amendment protects us from the government keeping us silent, forbidding us from getting access to information. And we've seen it play out in attempts by the state of California. They tried this about 20 years of video game violence and lost in a 7-2 decision written by Scalia. And we would expect a similar outcome on legislation like this. As well-intentioned as it is, the First Amendment's there to protect us from government censoring content. And at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about here.
Carl Szabo, thank you, Carl. Carl is with NetChoice. He's a vice president and general counsel with that organization, talking about the battle between the state of Utah and the high-tech industry over laws restricting minors from using social media.